Christina, how did you, when you're looking, starting with a client, where do you start? Because it can be pretty overwhelming.
Definitely. It is definitely overwhelming. And I actually allow myself about 30 seconds to be internally overwhelmed as well. But my job is, to try to bring peace and comfort to the client. And this is where I think it's important to have some grace with ourselves. You know, my brain can kind of just see the clutter and visually see the whole progress and how it's going to unfold. And I think people feel very guilty that they can't do that. And then I think it's really important to kind of honor your strengths. And if you don't have the mind that does that, ask a friend or hire help. And so my job is to teach them the process to not be overwhelmed. So the very first thing is really I would empty everything out. Like that is the very, very first step for anybody. That anybody can do. And I would suggest trying to put it in a room that's not going to stress you out even more. If you have a guest room or a side room, like if you're organizing the living room, for example, and you can use the dining room, whatever it is. But the very, very first step is to allow yourself to be a little overwhelmed. It's okay. Get some help if your mind cannot see it that way, and to empty out the whole closet or space or whatever you're organizing.
How would you help people let go of things that they shouldn't have anymore, but they're so tied to, whether that be clothes that, I'm sure I still have a sweatshirt from high school that, has value to it because it was like my basketball team, but
yeah,
am I ever going to really wear that again?
I mean, I know it's hard with the emotional attachment, and it's crazy because these things are, they're not real objects. And I'm not trying to sound over dramatic when I say this, but I mean, I feel like I've seen it all in terms of, people sitting there crying and I'm not saying this in a judgment way, but, crying because they don't want to get rid of it. So it's interesting how much value we do place on things. So I think the first thing is to have the awareness that it is just an object, right? I think sometimes it sounds so silly and so simple, but I think we need to remind ourselves it's just a mug, it's just a shirt, it's okay. If we get rid of it, we will be okay. We place just so much of our power into this object that's not even real. And I say to have some wiggle room with it, like the high school sweatshirt that you're saying. I mean, I would keep that, right? It's a fun memory. I wouldn't keep your whole wardrobe from high school per se, but I would keep one just to have as a memory. And in this instance, just because we're going with that theme, and somebody else brought this up the other day, so I think a lot of people kind of go through this. I like to have memory boxes for each chapter, and this allows me sometimes. So I'll do kind of baby, childhood, grammar school, kind of like the big chapters, then high school, college, adults, family, just kind of like the big life chapters. But this allows you, for example, like if you're really not going to wear that sweatshirt, to put it in the box, and it has a purpose because the intent is that you will bring it out, share it with your family, whatever it is. But now it's not space in your closet. So sometimes it's also important to get creative. Like, how can we bring this into my home and to my day to day and enjoy it, but not necessarily just stuff it into the back of a closet.
Christina, I love all these home organization shows. And so you see them come in and they do all these revamps. And just like you do with your clients, after there's that initial reveal, what tips do you have for us as we try to sustain that organization? Because it's all, set out and everything. But then there's the actual day-to-day life of the clothes going on the ground of the closet, or new clothes coming in and not trying to be able to know which clothes to get rid of to kind of replace them. So what practical tips do you have just to sustain that organization once you get everything organized?
No, absolutely. So the first thing is, at least during my process, I really try to involve the client and teach them, because I don't want them to just walk in and not know how to sustain it, to your point, right? So anytime somebody is working with an organizer or is just trying to educate themselves, I really suggest to try to learn and not just have it be magically transformed and then not know how to keep it organized. In terms of a practical tip, so I call this, I don't know if it, I just came up with this random name, but I call it Christina's 8-minute rule. And I came up with this for myself and I passed it on to my clients and they used it. And anytime I'm doing a talk on organizing, I don't know, I pass this on and I don't know, it works. I really like it. So the 8-minute rule is to set, it's very simple, but you set your timer for 8 minutes. And the intent is to try to get yourself into a habit, a daily habit and practice of putting as much away as you can, kind of tidying up in that 8 minutes every night. Now, I suggest to start with the bedroom with this. The bedroom to me should be a sanctuary, very calming, but clutter is really just postponed decisions if you think about it, right? It's I'll put this here for now, or I'm going to do this tomorrow, or I'll go through this another day. And so this 8 minutes, I mean, I don't have science behind this per se, but 8 minutes, you can get a lot done in that time. 5 minutes is kind of not enough. And sometimes we don't have 10 minutes. So there's this magic number that I came up with of 8 minutes. And it's really just to train ourselves to, again, every day get into this habit of putting as much away as we can. And this really starts to train your mind as well. Okay, I'm going to make decisions and choices now. I'm going to take action now. And instead of putting it on the counter and go through it on Sunday, I'm going to take the 2 seconds to 2 minutes to go put it away. People have really told me that this really starts to create a habit for them. So I think that that's a really good little tip and tool that hopefully people can try.
My biggest problem area is like the mail, right? You get it comes in, you separate the junk and what you need to do. And you're like, I'll open that later. Like 5 days later. Oh shoot, that was important.
Exactly. That's my point. Also, can I say one more thing on that? The goal is not to finish the room. So in 8 minutes, don't feel guilty if you didn't finish putting away everything in your bedroom. That's not the intent. It's okay, 8 minutes a day, I'm going to get into this habit. And then by Sunday, if that's kind of my home cleaning day, I'm just kind of doing a little bit, maybe dusting or something like that. I don't have a tornado of a mess.
I love it. I think because it's exactly what you're saying. It's just like a little daily thing. And like exactly what Kelly was saying before, like we make our kids do it. We make our kids tidy up every day. But having that same, just like small little goal for us.
Yes, absolutely. Kids are very interested. I didn't mean to like segue into that, but I've had interesting experiences with kids and organizing. That's like a whole nother journey because I've experienced little mini organizers that I would literally want to hire because they're so brilliant when it comes to organizing. And then I would have kids that were little mini hoarders.
What are some tips for helping people get organized, keeping those playrooms, whether it's Legos or all of the dolls? What types of things can people do to kind of bring organization to that?
Yeah, so depending on the age with kids, there's going to be a certain age bracket where, really the parent is going to be the one organizing it. We can try to instill, organizational habits within the children. But sometimes I've seen parents get very frustrated that they're not putting it away. But up, when they're like 2 years old, something like that, they're not really gonna know what they're doing. So, but I always, say start young. And so a lot of times I'll label with a picture to try to teach them. So, let's say dinosaurs. Okay, so I'll, put a picture of a dinosaur on it or dolls, just so that they can start to get into the habit and the practice of putting things away. So I don't know if anybody has tried that. It's against all these kind of sound very simple, but I talked to a lot of people and they've never done it. So hopefully that tip helps to use pictures and just to, guide them and let them know that that's where it belongs. And then in terms of instilling organizational habits in children, I used to work with them a lot on decluttering and trying to let them know that there's other little boys and girls that don't have as many toys. And so I would try to, help them learn the practice of really, keeping the toys that make them really happy and that they love to play with every day. But most often there's just so many toys that they don't need, you know? And so honestly, a lot of them really understood that. They really did. And it kind of, warms your heart when you're talking to them. But if I said, oh, there's other little boys and girls that don't have as many toys, is there any that we can give them? And so many times, of course, yeah, give them this toy, give them that toy. And I think those are the habits that, when they're young, they'll carry on when they're older and, might not have as hard of a time decluttering. So it's wonderful working with kids. Also, in terms of the parents, big tip here. So there's so many different celebrations and occasions and holidays, right? It is just, they're endless. And it's for kids, they just get toys. I mean, they get clothes too, but most of the time they're getting toys. So, I'll work with parents who, it's been 7 years and they've never ever gone through one toy. And so you can imagine the Christmases and the birthdays and the school graduations or whatever it is, how many toys that is over years, never mind just 1 year if we're looking at one calendar year. So I really would try to get into the practice of at least once a year, at least. I would do more, but we'll say one time a year of going through the toys. Because they just don't do it. And then it's another year and it's another birthday. And also trying to be very open with your friends and family. If you really have enough toys, maybe there's something else, an experience that the kids could do, or, so I think it's also being a little bit more vulnerable and open to friends and family and saying, listen, we don't need any more toys. Thank you for the thought, but let's figure out some other way to celebrate. Now, if you do want to have that experience and you want to bring new toys into the house, then again, before that birthday, so we're in January, if your child's birthday is in February, by the end of this month, go through those toys so that you can enjoy the birthday and bring in a whole new slew of things. But what's going to happen most of the time is they're going to have all their current toys. We're going to have a birthday celebration in February, and now we're just going to double everything, hence the clutter. So a lot of something as simple as that is knowing, okay, 2 weeks before your child's birthday, put it in the calendar and declutter the toys.
I love that. Yeah, that's super helpful. I tried to get my kids excited about sheets and the new sport that they're playing next. I'm like, oh, they're going to need a glove. Don't you want that for your birthday?
Good. Yeah. Encourage them with what they need.
Right?
Exactly.